an independent editorial analysis of Japan's defense posture and security policy.
The architecture of modern air defense is fundamentally a contest against the curvature of the Earth. For an island nation with the distinctive geography of Japan, relying solely on ground-based radar sites creates a fragmented surveillance picture. Low-flying cruise missiles and surface-skimming aerial threats can exploit the inevitable gaps created by the horizon and mountainous terrain. The introduction and continued modernization of the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye within the Japan Air Self-Defense Force represents less of a mere aircraft acquisition and more of a structural attempt to close these geometric vulnerabilities. This platform functions as the mobile high ground of the archipelago's defensive network. It elevates the sensor horizon to an altitude where physics no longer favors the aggressor. At the core of this capability lies the APY-9 radar system, a piece of technology that dictates the strategic utility of the entire aircraft. Unlike traditional airborne early warning radars that rely purely on electronic scanning or mechanical rotation, this system employs a hybrid approach. This mechanical rotation, combined with electronic scanning, allows the operators to focus energy on specific sectors without losing 360-degree situational awareness. This technical distinction is critical when analyzing the potential detection of low-observable aircraft. By operating in the ultra-high frequency band, the radar interacts with the physical dimensions of stealth airframes in a manner that higher frequency fire control radars cannot. The wavelength resonance effects inherent to this frequency band suggest that the E-2D offers a credible counter-stealth capability. It potentially degrades the operational impunity that fifth-generation fighters might otherwise enjoy in the airspace surrounding the Ryukyu Islands. However, the detection of a threat is merely the initial step in a complex kill chain. The true systemic value of the E-2D fleet, particularly those stationed with the 603rd Squadron in Naha, is its role as a network node within the Naval Integrated Fire Control Counter-Air Architecture. This capability fundamentally alters the lethality of the maritime surface fleet. Through the cooperative engagement capability, the aircraft provides fire-quality data to Aegis-equipped destroyers, such as the Maya class. This allows these vessels to launch SM-6 interceptors at targets that remain well beyond their own radar horizon. This integration transforms the destroyer from an isolated defensive unit into a magazine for a distributed sensor network, effectively pushing the defensive perimeter hundreds of kilometers outward. Recent developments regarding the upgrade of mission display systems and onboard combat computers through the foreign military sales mechanism highlight a critical, often overlooked bottleneck in this architecture. The sheer volume of data generated by the APY-9 radar and the incoming streams from the tactical data links can overwhelm legacy processing capacities. More importantly, it can overwhelm the cognitive bandwidth of the air battle managers on board. Yet the decision to invest heavily in these interface upgrades indicates an acknowledgement that the limiting factor in modern aerial warfare is no longer just sensor range. It is the speed at which raw data can be synthesized into actionable targeting information. Without these upgrades, the latency in decision-making could negate the range advantage provided by the hardware. From a procurement and industrial standpoint, the heavy reliance on the foreign military sales process for the E-2D introduces specific vulnerabilities. While it ensures interoperability with U.S. Navy assets, which is a prerequisite for the bilateral alliance's operational plans, it also exposes the Japan Air Self-Defense Force to currency fluctuations and rigid supply chain dependencies. The depreciation of the Japanese yen against US dollars significantly inflates the sustainment costs of these high-maintenance assets. This creates a budgetary tension where funds allocated for operations and maintenance must compete with capital for new acquisitions. This could potentially affect flight hour availability. The complexity of the E-2D requires a robust logistical tail. Any disruption in the flow of spare parts from US manufacturers could ground a significant portion of the fleet, leaving gaps in the surveillance umbrella. Furthermore, the deployment of these assets to the southwestern islands introduces a tactical dilemma regarding force protection. The E-2D is a high-value asset with a substantial radar cross-section and limited self-defense capabilities. In a high-intensity conflict scenario, these aircraft would likely become priority targets for long-range air-to-air missiles or specialized anti-access weapons systems. The operational doctrine must therefore balance the need to push the aircraft forward to extend sensor coverage against the imperative to keep them outside the engagement envelopes of adversary systems. This necessitates a layered escort strategy, a requirement which draws fighter resources away from other missions, illustrating how the introduction of a strategic enabler imposes secondary taxes on the rest of the force structure. The integration of the E-2D also signals a shift in the human capital requirements of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. The complexity of managing a networked battle space requires a different skill set than traditional airborne control. Operators must now manage the interplay between maritime and aerial domains. They must understand the kinematics of ship-launched weapons as intimately as they understand aircraft interception. This drives a need for specialized training pipelines that are increasingly expensive and time-consuming to maintain. The effectiveness of the hardware is ultimately capped by the proficiency of the crews, and the retention of these highly skilled specialists is becoming a silent readiness challenge. There is also a pertinent question regarding the interface between the E-2D and Japan's indigenous defensive network, the Japan Aerospace Defense Ground Environment. While the aircraft is optimized for interoperability with US systems, its seamless integration into the domestic command and control architecture remains a continuous engineering effort. Ensuring that the track data generated by an E-2D over the East China Sea can be instantly utilized by a Patriot battery on the mainland, or a Type 03 medium-range surface-to-air missile unit, involves navigating complex software bridges and data translation protocols. Any friction in this information exchange reduces the system's responsiveness to saturation attacks. The strategic trajectory suggests that the E-2D will eventually need to operate in concert with unmanned systems to remain viable. As the threat environment matures, the risk to manned platforms operating forward of the fleet will increase. The potential pairing of the E-2D with long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicles, such as the MQ-9B Sea Guardian, could allow the manned aircraft to hang back in relative safety while directing unmanned sensors in the contested zone. This manned-unmanned teaming concept represents the logical evolution of the current doctrine, but it remains in the nascent stages of operationalization within the Japanese context. Analyzing the E-2D program through a systemic lens reveals that it is not merely a purchase of radar planes. It is a commitment to a specific method of warfare, one that prioritizes information superiority and networked lethality. It binds the Japan self-defense forces tighter to US operational concepts and technology standards, reducing strategic autonomy in exchange for tactical excellence. The investment in such a sophisticated platform underscores a recognition that the defense of Japan is no longer a static shield, but a dynamic, data-driven web that must react faster than the adversary can cycle their decision loop. The effectiveness of this web, however, rests precariously on the ability to maintain the delicate balance between advanced technology, logistical sustainability, and the protection of the critical nodes that hold the entire architecture together.